Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. This is our wrap-up show of our 2019 Sundance Film Festival coverage. And sitting here before me is the exhausted crew of everyone who stayed behind here in Park City. I'm joined by Dante James.
Hello.
Anthony Ray Bench.
Hey.
Norman Gidney.
It's me.
And our video team, who did an amazing job. If you've been checking out our YouTube channel and you've seen our coverage from Sundance, there are interviews there. The podcast, actually, you could listen to the podcast on YouTube. You might be listening to this podcast on YouTube as I speak right now. Bobby Schwartz.
Yo.
And Walter Arias.
Hola.
And I want to, let's go round table here. And I want to ask you guys, what were the highlights for you here at Sundance? I'll start with you, Dante.
Okay. I really enjoyed. This is my first time at Sundance, and got to see a lot of great films. Some of the ones that stood out for me were a movie called One Child Nation. The reason why is because I heard a lot about China's one-child rule, but never really understood the mechanics of it until this filmmaker, who I wish I could remember her name, decided to pretty much risk her life and her camera crew's life to go to China and dig and find out what was happening to these babies that were just basically disappearing. And it was heartbreaking, but it was informative and very well done. And I think it was like her second movie that she's ever done. So, I mean, bravo to her.
Nice. And then you also, there's a movie that you gave a rare 10 out of 10 to.
Yes. And that would be the Wu-Tang Clan of Mics and Men. And, I can't assume everyone knows who the Wu-Tang Clan is, especially depending where you grew up. But for most kids who grew up in the hood, they are basically a legendary rap group who pretty much changed the course of rap. Because up until that time, rap was pretty much just about gangster rap. These guys kind of brought a new spin on things, and forgive my voice because this weather is killing me out here in Utah. I'm not used to all this fresh air.
Yeah.
But yeah, Of Mike's Man is a extremely well done documentary about the Wu-Tang Clan. I highly recommend it. It's a 4-parter. We were only able to see parts 1 and 2. Part 3 and 4 come out in May, I believe.
Great. And then also you and I saw a film. It was a midnight screening at the Egyptian Theater with a friend of ours, Annie Cruz.
Correct.
And so we hung out with her before we went to the screening. A film called Mope, starring as David Arquette and a cast of
Kelly Sarai, Nathan Stewart, Jared was the lead.
Yeah, and it's based on a true story about aspiring porn stars called mopes, right? They're sort of these guys that they're more like background players, and it's a true story of a guy who kind of went crazy off the rails and with the samurai sword, just did some horrible things. I actually don't want to. If you haven't heard of the real case, I don't want to give too much away, but this movie was, I don't know, like incredibly hilarious. The opening scene is absolutely hysterical, off the rails, insane. And then it also, as much as it is funny, it was incredibly dark.
Yeah, it was dark, but it was also, like you said, it was just entertaining. I think everyone in that theater was having a good time up until it got dark.
Right.
Obviously, there were some things that you probably shouldn't laugh at. But then again, I think a lot of that movie we're seeing is that we probably shouldn't have been laughing at, but we were. So
yeah. But I'm really curious to hear what other audiences think of Mope. I think you and I enjoyed it, and I think the midnight screening is like the perfect context to see that film. Well, yeah, I'm just not exactly sure, like, how's a normal audience gonna like? I mean, a normal audience, just like I cannot wait to hear what a mainstream audience thinks of this, right?
I don't think a mainstream audience can watch this movie and enjoy it, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so Norman Gidney, what were the highlights for you? And I know you have several.
Excuse me. Well, there is Little Monsters. Mm-hmm. That was amazing. The Nightingale. That's a polarizing movie, but I loved it.
Well, tell me, Nightingale's the one that you went to see. I was really jealous and really wanted to see that film. It's from the woman, Australian director
Jennifer Kent, who did Babadook, Babadook.
Right. So tell us about Nightingale.
It is totally different from the Babadook. Which really excited me because as Jennifer Kent, is an auteur, she takes a film, makes it her own. She makes something totally new. And when she's going off into a different direction, I was excited because she's talented. She's amazing. And what she did was more of like a revenge picture because the film starts out and there's some really rough stuff that happens. Then the whole movie is a woman and an Aborigines man chasing the people who wronged them, and exacting vengeance. And it's a 2-hour film shot in a really the aspect ratio was also like a perfect square. Forgive me, I don't know the exact number, but
it's like television, like 4:3.
Yeah. And I was like, I kept thinking the whole film, why did she do it like that? But because
several movies have done that. There was a film called A Ghost Story that also did the same. Yeah, also did the same.
Yeah, was a great movie. But I was thinking that maybe it was because of the aspect ratio of that time. Anyway, the point is, it was really good. The performances were all phenomenal. This is not everybody's movie. Little Monsters is hilarious. It's the first 15 minutes, I'm telling you, everybody was laughing so loud and so constantly that you could barely hear the dialogue. I mean, this movie was made for people who love Shaun of the Dead, Star Wars, and just being silly. I mean, it was so fun. Then there was Wounds, which was also really good. Armie Hammer was in that, and that was just, I personally thought it was just crazy. But, it was a lot of fun. It was about kind of the allowances we make for ourselves and where that leads to. And I know that's weird.
I know you sound like you're being mysterious.
I'm being very mysterious because the thing is, it's about going to see it and experiencing it for yourself. In fact, that's the whole joy that's my favorite thing of Sundance, was the fact that I went into things knowing relatively nothing, and things kind of unfolded. But, okay, Wounds was about Armie Hammer and his girlfriend who, they live in New Orleans, and he works at a bar, and his a fight breaks out. These kids are in there. He picks up a cell phone that is left during a scuffle, and he starts going through the phone and finding weird things.
Okay, I'm already intrigued.
Yeah, but it was fun. And it was dark, and it was weird, and there were roaches everywhere. Armie Hammer was running through different theaters at Sundance, throwing out plastic cockroaches. And I actually have a few of them.
Okay, so that explains a couple things, because we found one of those plastic cockroaches.
He was doing that, and that's a key element in that film, because the conceit is that. They're searching these occult things, and cutting a wound in the flesh summons demons. If you do this thing, it's. I'm trying still to be vague, but when they do the ceremony, little roaches climb out, and start appearing.
What any other highlight films that you saw?
You know what? It was The Nightingale. It was Little Monsters. Wounds. Sister Amy was actually wonderful.
Yeah, I saw
that. Was really just this Little Miss Sunshine-esque, frothy little confection that was just fun, and it was funny, and it was lighthearted, and I had a good time for an hour and a half. It was great.
Let's talk to Anthony Ray Bench, who's ready to tell us about his highlights at Sundance. What were the highlights and movies that you saw that you loved. I know, like, I'm spacing on the name of the wrestling movie that I know that like you were ecstatic about.
Fighting with My Family.
Yeah. So tell us about what were the highlights, and I'm sure that that's among the highlights.
More so seeing like the circumstances of seeing the movie. I was really trying to get a ticket, and I couldn't. I was denied. They offered me a ticket for actually tomorrow, which is the 30th, the day we're leaving, and I told them thank you, but no thank you, can't do that. They got back to me and said that they did have a ticket. Show up at 9 p.m. I showed up at 9 p.m. The line was wrapped around the building. And the lady said, you know what? I told you to get here at 9 p.m. It was a little bit too late. I don't want you to sit in a crappy seat. You get a reserved row or a reserved seat. So I sat 4 seats next to Nick Frost, which was amazing. There was a couple of rows between me and Dwayne Johnson. There was a wrestler who I really liked named Aleister Black, who was a...
Dwayne Johnson have a nickname?
I think the Pebble, maybe. So that was cool. The movie, I enjoyed it. I think non-wrestling fans will enjoy it as well. It's about Soraya Jade Beavis, also known as Paige. She's a WWE superstar. It's the story of how she got into the WWE. She comes from a family of wrestlers. Her dad, her mom, her brothers are all wrestlers, and they own a promotion in Norwich, England. So Vince Vaughn is in it. Vince Vaughn was the best part. He was awesome. He plays the NXT trainer / WWE talent scout, and he kind of has a backstory, and he's very gruff and short and just really hilarious. And the cast did a great Q&A. The movie is directed by Stephen Merchant. He has a nice cameo. That's awesome. And yeah, it was a great time.
What other things stood out to you at Sundance in terms of, movies that you saw?
Well, my top favorite, hands down, was the Untitled Amazing Jonathan doc.
Oh my God! Just hearing you. In fact, you were talking about it like I think it was like the day after you saw it or something. Mm-hmm. You were showing us like bits of the Amazing Jonathan, like on
the Blue Man Group bit.
Oh my God! Okay, so that of the docs, and I've seen a few. That is the one that I have to see that I was not able to. So I cannot wait to see it myself. But if you mind telling us a little bit more about it, like.
Sure. The Amazing Jonathan is a magician / comedian who, I guess the best way I can describe it is he does like magic tricks that you've seen a million times, like connecting the rings, taking, ribbons out of his sleeve, and he does something always like demonic and twisted with it. Like instead of the ribbons, it's like razor blades, and he's pulling them out of his mouth, and there's blood and guts. Instead of pulling a rabbit out of a hat, he pulls a rabbit out of a hat and like does it, like kills it with a chainsaw, like that sort of stuff. And he was diagnosed with this heart disease a few years ago, given 1 year to live. And he's lived 3 years past his expiration date. I believe it's 3 years. So he wanted to hire a documentary crew to, just kind of make a movie about his life and, to allow people to know who he was. And so a documentarian named Ben Berman shows up and starts documenting and realizes that the Amazing Jonathan hired a second crew. And this second crew is very like, don't show us on camera. We're going to show up earlier to his show, and we're going to set up our cameras so the Ben's crew can't get any shots. And it's just this weird, intriguing mystery. You start questioning, is the Amazing Jonathan actually telling the truth about dying? Because he still is very much dying. I thought he was better, but he's still dying, and it could happen any day. But he went on one last farewell tour, and that's the crux of the movie.
Okay, well, that's at the top of my list of films that I was unable to see. Couple quick highlights for me. Apollo 11, which is a documentary about, of course, the moon landing with Neil Armstrong and whatnot, which was, of course, fictionalized in the movie First Man. with Ryan Gosling. But this movie is a compilation of footage that was shot at the time, footage that has never been seen, footage that was shot on, interestingly enough, the cameras that they used to shoot the moon landing actually were in HD, but they were received. They could only display them in standard definition. So, excuse me, all of this stuff has been up-resed, and it's a phenomenal look at just like everything about the moon landing. Couple other highlights was to me Big Time Adolescence, which is Pete Davidson's movie. Pete Davidson from SNL. You know, he was dating Ariana Grande. Apparently that was a big thing on the internet. In any case, so Pete Davidson plays this guy who's like, he's like the cool guy, right? He smokes, he does drugs, he just does whatever he wants and plays video games. And he kind of makes friends with like this kid who's like, 12, 13 years old, and they end up remaining friends even though he's like out of high school and in his early 20s. They do everything together, and this kid really his name is Monroe. He really looks up to Pete Davidson's character Zeke. Like, oh my God, you're so cool. You know everything about women. But then begins to slowly realize that everything about this guy is he's giving bad advice on women, getting him involved in drugs in an unhealthy way, and kind of has this realization that the hero he looks up to might not be someone that he should really aspire to be like. And the other one that I saw that was great, Bobby, you and I saw that together, was Marion and Leonard. It's about Leonard Cohen and the great love of his life, this woman, Mariana. And it's directed by Nick Broomfield, which, if you heard the interview with Nick Broomfield on the podcast, I knew Nick when I first moved to Los Angeles. He had an office across the hall from Film Threat, oddly enough. And he was editing movies, would lend me some of his films. And this thing was a passion project of his. And I just highly encourage you to listen to the Nick Broomfield interview podcast to get just, so you could hear us have a conversation about it. But Bobby, it really affected you, the film. It affected both of us.
Yeah,
so I don't know if you want to like talk about it a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That was definitely really impactful for both of us. I mean, we talked about it on the bus after.
Yeah.
There's something about, we know Leonard Cohen from, Hallelujah. Obviously, he's a very famous musician, but, really the side of his relationship with his muse and kind of how even after they separate, they still, that relationship still informs a lot of who they are. I think that it was just really, it makes you think about your own relationships in your life. And you don't want to be on your deathbed and have something that you didn't say to someone who meant a lot to you. But, you see them both at the end of their, obviously that's not a spoiler. They passed away, but you see them at that point really, after this incredible journey that the doc goes through that is just, it was a really beautiful relationship, and I was not prepared for the waterworks, but they happened, and I think the whole screening was like emotional. But
yeah, and the footage that they were able to just compile was incredible. There's another film that you saw that was at Sundance. We have a lot of coverage of Sundance actually on the website. Our remote team was covering it and whatnot. So we have a lot of Sundance reviews that you can check out on filmthreat.com. But you saw a film, actually, you and Walter both saw a movie that you were impressed with. Can you talk about it a little bit without giving away that? Because I really want to see the film, just like the documentary Anthony was telling us about. Like those are like on the top of my list of the two I wasn't able to see that I'm dying to see. Can you tell?
As they should be. It was,
right.
It was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw The Vast of Night, and it was the director's directorial debut. He had worked in some commercials before, but this was his first feature. And the performances were incredible. It sets you in 1950s New Mexico, which, knowing genre things that happened at the time, maybe you can assume what kinds of weird things are happening in New Mexico in the 1950s. And so we followed these two kids who, via a strange phone call through the radio station while their entire town is occupied with this basketball game, kind of have to heed this phone call's message about this sound that's coming in over the radio, and they have to kind of unravel the mystery of their town. And that's really all I want to say about it, because the like you were saying, Norman, part of the freshness of that movie was going and not knowing anything. So yeah.
Well, I will say I do regret not being able to spend more time at Slamdance. I mean, we did get to interview a lot of Slamdance, several Slamdance filmmakers, and talk to Peter Baxter. So you can listen to that on our Slamdance episode of the podcast. But it's interesting because all these movies come out, right? Like Slamdance and Sundance kind of set the tone for the industry, right? Like January is like boom, couple hundred movies get dropped on the industry. Now, which ones are going to resonate? Which ones will be, Oscar contenders come fall 2019? Which ones will actually get distribution, right? Because Big Time Adolescence currently, as we're recording this, has no distribution. I have no doubt that it will have a distributor, and it seems like it would make a good summer movie. Just because it's like a teen comedy in the vein of John Hughes, but with weed. Weed and sex. But, you never know. And then like Memory, The Origins of Alien. I loved it. I know Normie didn't love it as much as I did. But I really love that film. And I love that, here we are examining Alien, made in 1979. Here it is 40 years later, and that film still continues to resonate. So I'm just curious. Now, we've seen all these films. You can read the reviews on the Film Threat website. Which of these are going to rise to the top, come year's end?
Like have their own memory alien docs about them in the future?
Well, maybe. But I mean, like more in the sense of, which ones are going to get distribution and you'll be able to see, and which ones will be awards contenders, and which ones may not, like, maybe sort of lost, they call them orphans, actually. Right? These like indie orphans that don't get distribution. But that's more rare now, where indie filmmakers do have more pathways to having their movies seen.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because today I got to go see a film called Clemency.
Ah, yeah.
Terrible title. However, it was an amazing film. It starred Alfre Woodard as a warden who was over, the guys on death row in her prison, and it was powerful. It was very well written, but during the Q&A, the producers, the director, writer, they still did not have a distributor. And this is Oscar bait.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Alfre Woodard will get an Oscar nomination if that gets picked up and the title is changed.
You think the title's that bad?
It's well, you know what? Go with it. I don't care. But Clemency? I mean, the film is amazing. And the opening is beyond powerful. Like you say, there are films that get picked up here, and there are films that still don't have a distributor. This one needs one. Mm-hmm. This is a damn good movie.
Well, that's part of, Sundance's mission is really to be a backdoor market for independent films. They're here seeking, distribution and access to audience, right? Via, whether it's a major theatrical release or whether it's like Velvet Buzzsaw, it just opens on it's on Netflix, right? Like, Velvet Buzzsaw screened on Sunday at Sundance, and then on Friday it was on Netflix. I mean, all that was planned out, right? Like, but it's interesting to see the pathway that these movies have to find audiences, and I hope that by listening to the podcast that you've discovered some movies that you'll look forward to seeing. What are some final thoughts from everybody? Dante, what final thoughts about this? This is your very first Sundance Film Festival. Final thoughts from everyone about this experience as we close it out.
Yeah, one thing that for me that I gathered from the festival is that it's something that if you are a filmmaker who has a story to tell, man, make your movie. I've seen a lot of people here who aren't being backed by major studios or have a lot of money put together a movie with like their own blood, basically, and those are usually the films that are more inspiring anyway and have more depth. But my point is, it's just this is an incredible festival, and if you have a movie that you think might not be great, just submit it anyway. Try to get in here, man. There's nothing like sitting in a theater with other people watching your movie being displayed.
Cool. Norm, your final thoughts? And you were also a Sundance virgin, and you're no longer a Sundance virgin. It's one of the
No, I'm not.
Yeah, no. I'm glad it's one of the few. Not forget it. I was gonna.
Stop.
It's very late. This is
We've had whiskey. It's late.
Right.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sundance was something that was pretty remarkable. I mean, listen. There was nothing here that completely blew me away or completely pissed me off. But what did blow me away was seeing just a sea of filmmakers trying and creating art and trying to connect with an audience. And it was the most exciting thing to have a schedule and not know what was going to appear on that screen. And kind of have an idea. Okay, this is horror. Okay, this is comedy. Okay, this is, whatever. But the lights fade and we're off into another world that I have no idea where we're going. And being, as an audience member, being receptive and being open to that experience. That's it's a little heady, sure, but what was amazing was having a place to give those filmmakers that chance and that respect. And I loved it. And I don't ever not want to come back because it was just remarkable.
Cool. Bobby, what are your thoughts?
Oh my
and
gosh.
Walter, do you want to add anything as well?
Yeah, I mean, this was also my first Sundance. My Sundance cherries popped, and I can't help but share the same sentiments. I mean, it's incredibly inspiring to see so many aspiring filmmakers like come here and aggregate all into one place and all have the same kind of dream to have their experience up on that big screen when the lights fade. And I thought I might feel at home in this environment, being the movie nerd that I am. And I think I was right. And I want to come back every year too. I mean, it was great.
The one thing that amazed me here, particularly because I saw 2 Slamdance movies, was the amount of risk that these filmmakers took to do something innovative, to do something that I haven't seen in a movie theater in a long time, and if ever. I've seen one movie where they mix. They have this base story of pulled from like a 1950s noir movie, but they layer it with this these moments that you would see in like a stoner comedy, and somehow it all ties together, and it at first doesn't make sense, and then they layer this wacky soundtrack on top of it, and it just seems like it would be completely dissonant and make no sense, but it all comes together so nicely, and you come up with something so memorable, but you have trouble putting it into words sometimes. And then, I also saw The Vast of Night, and the way that movie was shot, there's a lot of these really long oneers that you watch the movie and you're just amazed. How did they pull that off? There are some really tricky shots, and
That one through the neighborhood.
yes, and these really long scenes. Like, you don't see movies that take that leave the camera on a character for more than a minute. Some of these characters are speaking these monologues or in these dialogue scenes for 7 minutes. The camera doesn't move. Yet it's still the way that they tell their story draws you in. And then afterwards, hearing from the director and the cast and how they made that film, they had to use these. They were able to use these new technologies that hadn't existed 5 years ago to make these amazing shots happen in a film that didn't seem like it would bring anything new to the table. It does feel like something that was pulled out of the Twilight Zone. I don't want to give too much away, but it definitely feels like a lost Twilight Zone episode.
Or perhaps a Lost Paradox Theater episode.
Yes.
There you go. Cool. All right, Anthony, what are your thoughts on this is now your sophomore year here at Sundance.
Yep, year 2. I had a lot of fun this year, but the movies weren't as good. I don't think. There was no major standout. I mean, Untitled Amazing Jonathan was probably my favorite, but I don't think it holds a candle to something like Won't You Be My Neighbor, which really, really hit me in the gut. Another movie that I really liked that I didn't bring up was Judy and Punch, which was a really cool movie. But again, just felt like a weaker year this year.
You're not the first person that I've heard that from. I've heard other people mention the same thing, that they're looking for what is the movie. Sometimes there is the movie where you have to see it, and they'll even add additional screenings because they try to be accommodating when movies are popular.
The only one I got that sense of a buzz for was the Michael Jackson documentary, and none of us saw it.
Right.
So
yeah.
But the Weinstein documentary really had a shot at being something great and something special, especially because it's so timely, and Weinstein was such a big part of Sundance, and I'm sure a lot of the stuff covered in the documentary had happened at Sundance. But it was so underwhelming that I can't recommend it to anybody. There's nothing good about it.
Well, your review is actually on the website, which you can read Anthony's review of Untouchable, which is about Harvey Weinstein. But I think as you echoed what a lot of people were saying about it, there's no new information, and it was
Right.
but that may not be the last documentary about that topic.
Oh,
100%.
I'm sure it's not. Me and Matt Passantino, last year we were talking somebody's going to race to make a documentary on Weinstein.
Right.
And this one was the first out of the gate, at least to my knowledge. And I just don't think that it added any new perspective. I think, I was really bummed, I really... And another thing about that movie that kind of bothered me, they told the same story over and over and over again. And I get that, they want to give the women, the, abuse survivors, an opportunity to tell their story. But maybe, just stick with one, because it really got repetitive. It was the same story was, Harvey Weinstein asked for a massage, took off his clothes. The women ran screaming, and you hear that 4 times in a row. It's like, all right, let's get something else.
Well, this was I don't know. I haven't really counted the number of years that I've been coming here, but my first Sundance was around 96.
Not good enough at math to do that.
Yeah. But, there are a couple of years that I missed. I took kind of some time off. It is a grind. I mean, I think, physically everyone in this room is spent, right? I mean, it is like
Very much so.
I
exhausted.
just want to go to my bunk bed.
Right. Like, voices, we're all dehydrated. We need more lip balm or whiskey. I don't know. But I think well worth it. I think that, on that drive back, we're all driving back to Los Angeles. And that, being able to reminisce about these experiences will be pretty amazing. I know it was fun to be able to go to some parties with most of us were able to actually go to some parties, which was great to be able to hang out and go to some. Why are you looking at me,
Some
Norman
of us
Gidney?
were watching a
Yeah,
ton of movies.
right. Well, no, it was a
And-
good,
Yeah, well, no, my focus was seeing everything I possibly could because, it was my first time and it was movies.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you and I had lunch, which I almost never get to actually have a lunch with someone.
That was so LA.
It was yeah.
so LA.
We actually had lunch together, Norman and I.
lunch.
It was fun. We did, but I'm saying you're on the go so much. There's hardly time even to eat, right? Like I don't know how many times that Dante, you and I are like, oh my God, we're starving. Not because it's just there's no time with all the running around. So I want to thank you guys, everyone in this room, and Matt and Brad, who they took off a little earlier. You guys for just working so hard here between the podcast, the video coverage, the reviews on the website, amazing stuff. I haven't even had a chance to read all the reviews yet. It's been crazy, but just thank you so much for all the hard work and commitment. I hope that you guys, everyone listening to the Film Threat podcast will, check out the stuff on the site. We've got a wrap up article that links to every story that on every story and every review and all the videos that we did. So check that out. So you'll be able to pop around and thank you for listening to the Film Threat podcast. Hey, we're Film Threat on everything. We'll be going to other festivals coming up and doing podcasts from those festivals. South by Southwest and Tribeca, among others, and I don't know. I'm gonna just say let's get out of here.